Welcome to Under the Microscope. This series is brought to you by the Real Scientists Nano team. Our goal is to provide a platform where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, every week we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials and nanoscience, who would be curating the RealSci_Nano Twitter account.
Hi everyone, today we have with us Anna Piras, who is a PhD student at the Heidelberg Institute for Theoretical Studies in Germany. Hi Anna, how are you?
Hi, I'm very good. I'm very excited about this podcast.
Okay, super. Me too. So let's start with, we did speak about your science a little bit in the short podcast, but for the long past podcast, let's start by understanding your science journey so far. So tell us about your scientific career. How did you end up where you are?
Sure. I studied in Italy for university, but first I did also in Italy. I attended a scientific high school, and so there I studied physics, math, and chemistry. And after I couldn't really decide between math and chemistry. I really liked both of them, but at the end I decided to study chemistry because it was more applied, more pragmatical, and I wasn't sure of how I could handle a more abstract field. So after that, I started studying at University of Bologna, chemistry. And so I finished my bachelor there, and I continue with a master in chemistry and the curriculum of organic synthesis. So I didn't really study a lot of computational sciences, but while my bachelor thesis was in the experimental spectroscopy, so more on the physics side of chemistry. For my master, I did a computational thesis on a graphene catalyzed reaction, and there I decided that this was my field. And after that, I was lucky enough to find a PhD position exactly on graphene and carbon chemistry here at Heidelberg Institute for Theoretical Chemistry. And now I'm a second year PhD student.
Okay, wow, that's quite a journey you've had, and I'm glad you are getting to do your PhD work in the field that you did do your master work in, and I'm glad you found a way to mix chemistry and mathematics together. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. You did speak a little bit about your current research in the short podcast. But what I'm wondering is, how does it fit in this big picture of materials and nanoscience? Your current work, or your current PhD work, for example, where does this fit in this big puzzle of materials or nanoscience?
I think that one of the biggest challenges in materials and nanoscience is actually that there is a lot to do. Like there are so many possible materials that you can exploit just only on graphene derivatives. Like they exist like tens and hundreds of variation of different doping, different percentage of like some element, different shape, and experimentalists can't try everything because the time is limited. You have to have something. So I think what my work is trying to do, and a lot of computational scientists are trying to do, is just to help the development of these materials science with giving guidelines, just help to just rationalizing and putting some kind of trend or pattern in some behaviors that can help to understand where experimentalists should move.
Okay. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's very important and that's definitely interesting. So it sounds to me that you are, I mean, of course, your master work and now your PhD work is also super interesting. And you do quite a lot of interesting, I'm going to say experiments, but not
Yeah,
really experiments. I hope what you know what I mean. Or research projects. Let's go with research
yes.
projects. Let's go with that. Um, so this is a difficult question now. If you have to pick one research project that you're most proud of, or the most fun or exciting and quirky one, could you pick one and explain it to us in simple words in the section we call In Other Words?
Sure. So when I started the PhD here, my supervisor, she gave us a lot of freedom to decide more which project and which actually, like, yeah, which research project we wanted to do. And so the first 2 months, I was just reading literature and trying to find something to do, and was quite scary because there is a lot of literature on materials and nanoscience, especially in the last year. And at a certain point, I noticed that there were so many papers on how to detect some classes of molecules, like aromatic contaminants, which are molecules that are very common, and but they're also very dangerous for human health and for the environment. And I started finding so many papers where people were just trying, oh, we try to detect it with this graphene derivative, and we tried to detect it with this graphene derivative, but also nobody was actually checking the performance in the same environment. And so it was so difficult to understand which one works better, because they're trying this in this condition, and they're trying this in real water, and they're trying this in a buffer solution. And it was so difficult to understand which one is the better one, and did they find already the better one, or there is something they didn't think about. And after thinking about that, I decided that what I wanted to be one of my projects here was actually that. So to try to simulate everything with standard condition and simulate different materials they already tried, plus materials nobody tried yet, and try to find if can I simulate a single number that is actually a good measure of how well that sensor works. And that's what I didn't finish the project yet, but it seems to be, at least there are some qualitative trends. So I can say if the contaminant interacts very good with the material, it's easier to detect.
Okay.
Because it kind of automatically gets close to the detector because it interacts strongly. So you can detect it easily. And so that will be a very good way, because at that point you simulate the attraction, and then you can know, will it work well or not?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I can understand why you picked this as the project that you're most proud of because, well, that's your PhD work, right?
Yeah.
Well, part of the PhD, but let me
Yeah.
put it this way. Usually, it's bigger than just one thing. But no, I understand. I mean, this is really cool, and I hope it works. I hope it goes well. I hope you come up with some amazing combinations of graphene and different kinds of aromatic molecules that will give you the results that you're hoping to see. Yeah, that all sounds so exciting and super interesting. Absolutely. So let me ask you this. I'm assuming you love the science, the research part of being a scientist, the research that you do. But other than that, what else do you like about being a scientist?
One of the things I prefer about it is the kind of freedom. I mean, it's not a complete freedom of doing whatever you want. You still need to have some ideas and guidelines on where to move, but you are actually have the freedom to explore different fields, to change your research according to what you see. So I think that's one of the best thing about being a scientist, because you can actually understand how different fields and different topics are connected, and you have the freedom to explore this connection. And one of the things that I found most rewarding about being a scientist is that you always have the possibility of discovering something useful. I mean, if you are very lucky, it's something super useful. If you're like as big part of science is something that will change very slightly a single field and nobody will know about it, but still I think the scientists always have the goal to, let's say, change the world in their own way, and this is always something, it's main, like most of the times is something that can be very useful, even if right in the moment maybe you don't see the application. There is always the possibility that in 30 years somebody is going to read your research and find a better application. And I think that gives a lot of hope for the work.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh yeah, you're so right, Anna. You're so right. It's very rewarding and it's very fulfilling to know that as a scientist, are uh, you have the possibility to discover something useful. If you are lucky, super useful. But even if you are like an average scientist and into science, then you do have the possibility to discover something useful, decently useful as well, and also for years to come or decades to come. Um, it stays once you have discovered that little thing or a big thing. So that makes sense. That's so nice. It's so nice to talk about this. I'm getting all warm about this now. All right. What? Let me ask you this then. What advice would you give yourself or to the scientists who are starting out now? You can pick and choose if you want to go back in time and give advice to yourself, or you want to stay in the present and give advice to the scientists who are starting off or want to start off now. What advice would you give them?
I think sometimes you can get too much absorbed in science, because for a lot of people it's not just the work or the subject of their like PhD or master studies, but it's a passion. So feeling like a passion, that it's so difficult to understand that it's actually something you need to get breaks from. So what I would say to my younger self and to scientists who just started is actually to always try to have a good life research balance, or to like not just, I mean, I understand the good feeling of being like, oh, I can finish this project now, but I mean, always respect or put some boundaries. And I think that actually got worse with the whole working from home.
Right.
Because then it's even more difficult because you don't have to return home. So I found myself a lot of times working way over time and be like, oh, but I just want to finish this. And I also think that you think you're doing well, but actually the science is not gaining anything because you're just more tired and you do more mistakes and you start losing a bit the passion. Instead, if you just try to give yourself some time and everything, then every time you restart, it's always like, it feels good.
Right. I mean, it's okay every once in a while to meet the deadlines and finish the project or manuscript.
Okay. Meet the deadlines is important. I'm not saying not to skip that. It's more like, and sometimes you can work over weekend, but it's not, you need to work every single weekend all the time.
Exactly. Just pace yourself. I think that is very important that you said. Pace yourself, because in the long term, no one is benefiting if you work 12 hours a day. Not you, not the science, no one. Pace yourself. That's very important. I'm very impressed that as a second year PhD student, you have the clarity of pacing yourself. I'm really impressed, Anna, I must say.
I'm not sure how I'm actually good. Like, I know this is useful, but yeah, I know sometimes I don't get very good at it, at respecting my boundaries. But yeah, I mean, I always at university I was studying a lot and everything, and then was
Right.
always like not lose time, do the exam as soon as they like you can and everything. But yeah, some a certain point you start to feel like that maybe you needed a break.
Right, right. Yeah. It's often difficult, right? Even if you know in principle that you have to pace yourself, it's
Yeah,
difficult to walk the talk. But it's good that you're already aware of it and you try actively to
that's
set
right.
your own boundaries. That's
I
very
mean,
good.
yeah, I always tell it like to master student and everything. I'm like, yeah, to pace yourself, it's hard and everything. Then, I mean, I'm not always doing it, but I'm trying at least to say it. Then I will try also to do the example, but
At some point, you
that's
will
more
follow your
difficult.
own advice.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, that's very good advice. Absolutely, super. And it sounds to me that just with this advice already, you are trying to give or improve the research experience of your master students or people, your
yeah.
colleagues, people around you. And I hope your research experience has been wonderful so far and will continue to be wonderful in the future as well. However, if you had three wishes to improve your research experience, what would you ask for? And I'm not promising anything here, okay?
That's a bad news, but okay.
Sorry.
If I had the three wishes, uh, well, the first one that is the thing that I struggle the most is being able to read all the papers that are published, because uh, I think it's a common problem between scientists. You always have a huge folder of to read papers, and actually, like, there is no way that the balance is good. You just every day, I don't know, you put two in the folder and you read like half of one. So, and I know it's important, like, you need to do it because you need to understand where science is moving and what other people are doing. But yeah, sometimes it's just, I don't know, I never find the time. It's never like the big priority. So that will be like my first wish would be like, I just need to find the time, or find, I don't know, so by magical way, a way to read all those papers. And
Okay.
the second one, as I told before, I think the biggest hope for a scientist should be the one of making like big contribution to the world, and that is not something everybody can achieve. So that will be like my second wish. I'm very happy with how my research is doing and where is it moving and everything, but the idea of like making something that it becomes very important to the world, that will be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And my third wish would just be to always remember that research is a very beautiful thing, that it's like that you're learning new things, that you're exploring, that you're seeing things that nobody has seen before, even if it's something very niche, very like not important. You're always like the first person to compute that number or to check that structure, and I think that's always nice. So see the science always like that, and never as a stressful job,
Mm-hmm.
because with the deadlines and everything that is in science, sometimes you forget like where you started and why you started.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes it's impossible not to just think that it's a stressful job that you need to finish. So my third wish would just be to never consider it as a stressful job, but always remember why I'm doing it and why I love it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, that's all three of your wishes. For the first one, actually, I might have some pointers for you. Let's talk about that after we finish recording, because I have been in that situation as well. Want to read all of these 20 papers, but then there are five more coming next week, and then the pile is just increasing. I wish I could just change it, but I try my best to give you this. Tell you about this fantastic database that we have. And the second and the third wish, you're very kind and you're very noble about it. That you actually wished it on yourself, or like, because you're already doing it, right? You're already aware
Yeah,
of
but
it.
but I don't know. it's at the same time it's like very nice to the world, but it's actually selfish, like because it's like the biggest aim for a scientist. It's like I do something important, so bit difficult to say if it's really. I think it's a bit selfish, but in a nice way.
In a
Selfish.
nice way. It's selfish in a nice way, of course, absolutely. Well, I hope or I wish I could just be like tomorrow when you wake up, Anna, all three wishes are done, and this is how it's always gonna stay. Uh, however, especially for the second and the third, I think you are doing realizing those wishes yourself by walking the talk and following your own advice, so to say. So it's very nice that you talk about it. I think it's very, very important. So Anna, this has been wonderful. But before I let you go, one question that I have to ask you is 2020 has been a tough year with the pandemic. It's been a tough year for everyone. What are your learnings from 2020 that you would like to share with us?
So 2020 was very hard for, I think, everybody in the world. For a lot of people, it was impossible to visit their families. There was like the long lockdowns were very hard on mental health and a lot of problems. I was very difficult. So what I learned and what I will try to continue learning, because it seems that for a few months it won't change too much in Germany, least, and being Italian, also in Italy, like the situation is not solved completely.
Right.
So what I learned is, first of all, what does it mean to stay alone? Because even if I lived alone, even before the pandemic, staying alone that much is a challenge, but it's something that if you learn is actually very good. Like just be yourself, not being surrounded by people, and learn how just to count on yourself. That was very hard to learn, but I think then it became good. Like now I feel a bit better. I feel also like how I'm like, I know myself more because I spent so much time just with myself that it became in like. So I think that was very important, and also, and I think this will become even more this year and everything, how to be happy with very small things, like, don't know, in Germany, the happiness of the day that you can return to like a place and, I don't know, get a beer, like that would be, or that when it's a beautiful day and you're like, okay, today I can go for a walk. Like those small joys before, like nobody was like so moved by the idea of taking a beer or go to a bar and take a coffee and sit inside the bar, but now they became like this very small and incredible thing that maybe one day they will be back again. and everything, I think, feels more intense because I mean, it was so hard, and the standard of what makes you happy just decrease, and everything. Like before it was like, oh, I want to travel and everything, and now it's becoming like I want to see that only person that I want to see just to go run outside, and that's already makes you happy. And I think that was important, and I think that, I mean, the 2020 will make us better. I don't think it was so much real, but I think for some people it will actually help see the things in a different way, and it could be it's a different way. It can be better, it can be worse, but it's for sure it's more intense. Everything has changed. And I also think we saw that a lot of things that we thought we needed, they were actually not so much needed. So that a lot of events can just be virtual, and people don't need to move or to to meet in person. That a lot of things were not, that there is not so much need to travel and everything, and even if it's always nice, it's also not so much sustainable. So that I think it was something, and for people with families and everything, we learned that it's actually possible to work from home. that a lot of companies were not too much ready to try it before.
Right.
Now they had to try it, and a lot of people, especially I know people with kids or people with family, found that it's actually way
It's
better
doable.
for them, and it's doable, and the performance actually don't decrease as much as it was feared.
Right. That is true. Yeah, that's quite a lot of learnings. You're absolutely right. I think it's yeah, giving us a fresh perspective, appreciating the small things like going for a run or getting a coffee or just getting a beer after a long day at work. Yeah, hopefully soon it comes back in Germany. I have my fingers crossed for a kind of a normal, like getting a drink in a bar, sort of normal spring 2021. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. I don't know. But yeah, this has been wonderful, Anna. I learned a lot about your research, about yourself. I had a lot of fun. So thank you very much for speaking with me, and looking forward to having you on Real Scientist Nano.
Thanks, and I had a lot of fun to discuss these things, and I can't wait to share new science facts and information about me and about my PhD on the account. So it was very nice. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. To know more about us, please visit our website realscientistsnano.org and follow us on Twitter at realsci_nano.